Welcome to the Artfluence podcast, where we chat about how design impacts the way we live, work, and invest. I'm your host, Nick Karakan, along with my amazing co-hosts, Paul Fatkins and Nino Samarzik. Today we have a guest, Daniel Porter, who I've known for 20 years. He was in my wedding. He was my co-best man along with Paul.
He lived with us at a certain point in time when we were all at Kent State. Yeah,
I feel like you've all been my roommates at one point in the last 40 years. Yeah, Nino, have we lived together?
No, we never lived together.
Okay.
Thank God.
Well, hey, Danny, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself so we can dig into this topic?
Yeah, so I'm Danny Porter. I have, I think, 15 years now in experience in digital communications, and I've worked in a mixture of nonprofits, political campaigns, now higher education, and so I've crossed a lot of the field. But I do a lot of work with CRMs and front-end development and marketing, and most recently in graduate school, I spent a lot of time in Unity Engine and Figma doing user experience design and programming. And so I think this is such an interesting topic to me, and so I really wanted to be in it. And I'm super curious to hear how AI, which is such a groundbreaking thing, has affected your career of architecture and design. But I think I would say first and foremost, people should know that machine learning and AI have been around for years already in medicine and research and data analysis. And so it isn't new. The recent shift has been in its commercialization. Like so in language and art, its presence is now palpable. It's everywhere in our daily lives. I remember actually, Nick, when ChatGPT, the first version of it dropped, we were all, me, Nick, and Polly, we were at GalaxyCon in Columbus. It was a science fiction convention and and futurist convention. So we're at a futurist convention, and this Turing test passing AI just drops, and it kind of blew everything up. And I remember sitting at a panel. I'm like Nick, look at this. This is crazy. This is going to change everything. He's like, yeah, watch the panel. And I had been staying apprised of chatbots, I think, my whole life out of passing curiosity, but I had never encountered something that was this level.
Well, I got to tell you, I sometimes struggle with organic intelligence. So the thought of artificial intelligence is a little bit above my pay grade. So that's why I associate myself with fine folks like yourself, so you can lead the charge.
For you, in your fields, where are you seeing it in your industry?
I mean, we can certainly get into that. I wanted to take a step back. Let's just start with even machine learning, right? Yeah. You mentioned that term there, Danny. You kind of tossed it out there. Maybe people don't know what machine learning is. I mean, to me, it's like you hear it and you think like a computer goes in a room, closes the door with a bunch of books and some coffee, and is like teaching itself how to do stuff.
So is machine learning same as a deep learning, they call it? Or there is a difference between these two things?
No, I mean, it's like, not exactly, right? Mm-hmm. Like, again, like that's what you think. Like the machine is going in and like teaching itself how to do this stuff.
It's just really generating data.
Yeah, well, yeah, but there's data that has to be put into it, right, for it to even have something to reference. So whether it's some script, right, like Danny's using it with his stuff, or some image that someone's using to generate some design for their backyard patio area, right? There still has to be some input for that machine learning to occur. So it's not really teaching itself anything. It's really harvesting data that's out there, and people are inputting data into it. So there has to be some input.
But it still has to put this data in some kind of orderly manner in order to kind of, create the context.
So then
that's part of the intelligence.
Yes. Yeah.
But you get into classification, right? And then again, like you get into where some of these hallucinations occur, which is like a mistake.
Mistakes.
Because maybe there's an issue with the data that comes in, how it's classified, and then how it's utilized in the output, right? And it's like whether it's a design issue where it's like someone's using AI as a tool to design something, or some scripting thing like Danny might be using. Again, you have some input that might be classified wrong, and then some output that's wrong. Because Danny, in your experience, if you're using AI, is it right 100% of the time and you never have any issues with it, or do you still have to go in and check your work if you ask it to do something, right?
100%. You touch on a great point. So the ChatGPT as it exists now is a lot like a very complex version of, do you know on iMessage when you see the next like predictive word in
Yeah.
when you're just typing a text? It's basically that on a much larger scale. And so when you submit a prompt to ChatGPT, it's breaking up all of those words and text into little tokens, and then it's saying, okay, based on that prompt, what are going to be the next tokens
I
in
got
this
it.
sequence?
So
So
can it
you're
help me with
so
the
so
stock
so
market, Danny?
it might, if you already know a lot about the stock market, and you can prompt it with ways to kind of help you think like about a problem or to reconceptualize a problem. But as Polly mentioned, it's going to make a lot of mistakes. So if you go and you're like, hey, I need you to build me a great responsive website that's going to have all these different things, even if you know what you're talking about, you're not going to get a very good output. It's not going to be even usable. But if you're going in and saying, hey, I need to kind of address this problem or retackle this issue, and you already know a lot about JavaScript, well, then you're having more of a collaboration. You are the expert, knowing exactly kind of what you need to do, and it might be a little more valuable to you. But you're going to have to check its work. What it's trying to do is to present back to you based on your prompt the probabilistic, most believable answer to your
Got it.
query.
Yeah, I think one of the misconceptions too, just relating it back to the design world, people think that now with AI out there in the world, you just push a button, get your result, and you're done. It's like you
Do you
don't have to
know?
do
Do
anything.
you know why? I think because they use. I know that's a marketing trick, but word intelligence. It's a very sophisticated word. You know what I'm saying? And doesn't only include like a dealing with the data, includes emotions, includes million other things. You know what I'm saying? And them to use the word instead of high level of automation or something like that. Maybe this AI is on a way to become intelligent, but using word intelligence, it's even for us. When you say someone who is intelligent person, it can mean million things.
So you're saying it's more the appearance of intelligence.
From what I'm hearing, it's like, you know what I'm saying. Nothing against these smart people in Silicon Valley and stuff, but sometimes their perception of the world from the basement, when they actually spend a lot of time there, barely socializing. I'm just kidding, but creating something new. I don't want to say Frankenstein or something like that, but their perception. We just in previous podcasts talked about different perception from different roles. Uh, Intelligence is such a complicated. We even cannot grasp how our brain
Sure,
functions.
emotional intelligence
Yeah.
and everything else. Like, I'd be careful though, Nino. Columbus is going to have a lot of those folks from the coast coming here.
Oh, I know that. Hopefully they socialize a little bit more, yeah, in the real world. I'm just kidding. I actually, my wife, she started learning the Python together with the Dominic. So it was like, okay, guys, go ahead. I'm gonna stick with the visible things.
Okay, so we kind of determined like there's some gaps here in the technology.
Yeah, and even the tools that are out there, right? I mean, to me, they're tools, right? There's something that a design professional, a computer programmer, whoever is using these AI tools that are out there, because there's more than just Chat GPT. There's visual tools for architects to use, and rendering tools, and other AI, what people call AI tools.
Yeah, we actually use. There was like a couple of weeks ago. It's actually in our office started like talking more about artificial intelligence in architecture. And what we actually did, we use one of our like hospitals that we already have rendered and everything. And he actually plugged it. I forgot what software the name it is, but just created in the matter of a couple seconds, create like a
rendering
12 or 15 different design versions of the renderings, complete design versions. I mean, they're out of the context. They're like, out of the understanding of the basics of the structure, space relationship and stuff, but gives you like a different perspective. When you're designing something, Usually you go like on Pinterest or go in today bar, like look at architectural record and just look, get some inspiration and stuff. And I think this is a really good tool, like to get you like, oh, did you think about this? Did you think about that? That's a possible option.
I remember in college, I was a big fan of Frank Gehry, and we would like take a piece of paper and crumple it up.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
whatever
okay,
you get
make
it.
that work.
Yeah, make that work. And that's exactly how this software works, or whatever it is called. Let's call it, to not offend our tech guys, let's call it high level of automation. So it's like it creates these versions, that kind of intrigue you. I was like, oh, maybe I should, for a good designer, good eye, I was like, there is a little bit things about here that maybe I can utilize it. You know what I'm saying? I won't go like, oh, this is my house, done. Here we go. This is the version I have.
And it's interesting because you're saying like part of your design process when you start out, you might go look for something for inspiration, right? And essentially, yeah, I think that's what people are doing with these kind of limited tool sets. It's enhanced automation, like you said, where it's able to go out there and gather all this inspiration together and then output 15 different iterations of something, so that maybe it sparks something in you, the designer, to then say, okay, this is the direction I want to go and the path I want to follow.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily give you the magic bullet where it's like
No.
it's just done.
No, but
it points you in the right direction.
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't want to sound like an old fellow who's scared of the new technology that's coming, because this technology will rule the world. I mean, it's already. I mean, you see it in in the military a lot, and that's where everything is coming from. But it was like, can you imagine the world without GPS?
Sure.
But at the same time, if you put a little bit more guidance to these very smart minds that creating this artificial like input, how we can utilize this in design, it can be extremely beneficial, especially with collecting the data, because as we know, every design is based on location and every location is unique. We can gather tons of information for that specific site from the weather, prevailing winds, sound. Then we can gather all the code related stuff regarding that specific area. And instead of spending a lot of time on research and data gathering, which we have as a good designer we have to do, artificial intelligence can help us in that path.
So we have determined that AI definitely helps us magnify our work or save us time, right? And gives us a little bit extra juju for those who aren't maybe at the top tier of that industry. But I know Danny and I have had tons of discussions on how we're now bringing this into our workplace in terms of like working remotely and how we actually interact with our computer and how we're staying organized and our creative, like our process, whatever it is we do on the daily. But in terms of design, like even it can help our process to design, if that makes sense. Danny, I know you've done a bunch of different things to magnify your time. Would you mind getting into that a little bit?
Paulie and Nino both make great points. It's not really an artificial intelligence. And I think one of the mistakes we can make when you're having a conversation with any large language model or even using a programming tool that's AI is that you don't want to anthropomorphize it. It is a statistical tool, and it's basing it off of your prompt. And it's not going to be perfect every time. But it can be a good way to expand your thinking space and do a little brainstorming, or if you're a little stuck, like I just need to put some thoughts out in the ether and just start chewing on them a little bit. Now in my space, I like to automate a lot of things that I can. I've always been of the mind that if something is being copy and pasted more than once between one spreadsheet and another, that's a breakdown, and that's wasted time.
I agree.
So any tool I can use to churn out more automations, eliminate more time-consuming tasks that shouldn't be time-consuming, I'm going to use, and AI definitely can help with that. But I think that's how I approach it in my day-to-day. And I think also the perception of it being a quick fix, which I think Paulie mentioned, is go on Facebook today. Every single ad about AI is going to be like, this is going to do your marketing for you. this is going to do this for you. This is going to replace this. But it's not. I think anyone that would sit down and say, I'm going to actually try and use a tool like this to do something, well, it's only helpful if you have a lot of grounding knowledge in the topic you're approaching it with, which makes sense, because it is a tool that is responding entirely to your prompt. Now, granted, it has the whole wealth of human knowledge underneath it, and it has its training data, which is what makes it so earth-shattering. But as long as I think with any field, I don't care if it's architecture, I don't care if it's education, if you're viewing it as another calculator, another tool for the humans that are driving it, we'll be in a better place. I think when you start thinking, oh, this is just going to do everything for me, you'll find really, really quick that it's not going to.
And that's a good point, because we as a society, we need, and we talk about it, we have to go conquer all these universe that just like, expand beyond this planet Earth, And in order to do that, we need some help.
Don't get me excited.
Yeah.
Don't get me excited.
No, honestly, I'm looking at Nicholas because I know what but honestly, if we can, and I completely agree with Danny, if we can avoid these tedious tasks that we have to and we just have more time for our creative juices to open new horizons. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I think that's a very valuable use of this new super technology.
Yeah. And I liked what you said earlier, and you said we can't ignore it, right? And we need to start working with it, even though there's some limitations to it. But I mean, as time goes on, it's going to evolve and get better and become more refined. And as the data and the classification, all the stuff that's driving it is, gone to the next version. I mean, think of like Tesla and their self-driving software.
Exactly.
Right? Where did they start with it? Where are they today? They're still not quite there, but I mean, like compared to where they started.
Exactly.
I can take a nap in my car.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, almost. But one thing I will say, very basic, for our listeners, I remember I bought my first iPad. Then it was I just use it as for viewing the content. I couldn't really work on it, and I bought it to work on it. It was hard, even convert PDFs and stuff. Then the second came out with it was with that pencil thing. It was first I used this one of these third party stylus. It was horrible. It couldn't do anything, and then pencil came in, and I start sketching. Now I don't even have the latest version. I cannot imagine my life without using it. It helps me a lot, and I sketch a lot. So and now it gives me that input I'm using, and I will say, and I tell everybody in my office, I can survive the day without phone. And you guys know that because you send me the message and I respond 2 days later. Nino is hanging on his iPad and constantly sketching something. So I think this is how this, and more we put to use, give a opportunity, and accept this new technology, we're gonna see the more benefits from it, because
we need a way to save all of the sketches. So out of the three of us, Nino, you do definitely sketch the most. I love picking your brain for initial, design.
They're all on my iPad.
And we need to find a way to implement or input that into, some type of
just post it somewhere online and I'll harvest it into the data.
Everything is on a cloud, I hope, but the only scary thing is what some glitch happened and everything is gone. My artificial intelligence is good until it's unplugged from the power source.
Nino, what happened to you? You were such a good designer, and now you're garbage.
Overnight, I'm nothing.
And then you get into the chicken the egg conversation. Yeah. If it's using your drawings to give you design suggestions, who's the designer here?
Exactly.
This reminds me of Danny. What episode of Star Trek was we were in an advanced civilization and they've forgotten how to use they know how to use the technology, but they've forgotten how it was created, and it started to break down because it gotten so old, and then they're essentially reverting back to primitive man.
Well, it's like the Disney movie with robots too, WALL-E, right?
Yeah, WALL-E, exact same thing.
Everyone's relying on all this stuff to do everything for them.
Yeah,
all right, so let's make sure that doesn't happen, okay?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna get us back on track. I apologize. Danny, how else can we use this in the workplace? And I know you're kind of outside the design realm, but how do you see that impacting the industry and even other industries?
So here's another use case too, that I think of. Say you really don't know much about a topic, and it could be part of your career. It could be something in a general interest, but you really do want to become an expert in it, or you want to familiarize yourself with it. There's lots of great resources online. Like say I wanted to pick up a new programming language, or I wanted to. Normally, what I would do is I would start doing LinkedIn learning courses, or I would pick up YouTube tutorials and just dive right in. One benefit of particularly ChatGPT 4.0, because it is an English language learning model, is if you start with prompts that say, hey, I'm learning this new topic, I'm stuck on this first lesson, explain it to me like I'm a child, and then go from that just step by step by step. If you have some part of something you really want to like dive into and just start doing step by step, the benefit of having this infinitely patient, for lack of a better word, tutor that you can ask an unlimited number of questions
Said, yeah.
is a valuable thing. It actually is. And like I've even done it wanting to if you want to wrap your head around general relativity, like, and okay, well, explain to me again and again. Or say you're learning, you don't know how to do a specific kind of programming task, or you're confused. All right, show this to me 10 different ways that it's used practically in the industry. And 10 different examples, and then read them and look at them. That's just another use case where I think it can be, for lack of all, for all the scariness around it and the way it could upend different fields, it can be a force multiplier for individual education and continued learning.
Wow. Yeah, I'm thinking about like even now when you do like a Google search,
Yeah.
they have the automatic AI generated response as well. I kind of always laugh at the disclaimers because it's like, I am not a lawyer, but here's some information. I am not an architect, but here's some information.
I'm not a doctor, but you may have this or that. What?
Yeah. But I think Danny's right. Like if you want to get a good general sense of things, it can definitely, again, kind of like I was talking about before, it points you in the right direction, right? It starts you on your path that you start walking down. It might not be the end all be all. It's great, I'm done, I can just walk away, I got all my answers, but it definitely points you in that right direction.
In today's world, we are so impatient.
Yeah.
That is where we're lacking general as a society, in this like a super information flying everywhere. We just don't even pay attention to content. We're just reading from especially like I don't want to say younger generation, but many people like from the younger age, they're just like reading from the titles. They don't have a time to digest, you know what I'm saying? So any help is appreciative to understand the context better, instead of just like flying with the raw data around, which I'm seeing quite often since I'm also working as a project manager and have that exposure to the younger stuff coming right out of the college. I can say that generally like they're phenomenal, they're smart, they're hardworking people, but understanding the context, relationship, and emotions, it's almost a little bit like a distant from them, or they're scared to show it. I don't know. That's another thing.
Would you say they're more like robots?
No, they're not. They're definitely not. They just like express their feelings a little bit differently.
They have a different way to see the world.
Exactly, and to express themselves. Yeah. You have to give them. You have to be very good listener, because there is generational break everywhere. Like it's like look at your professors, and now like that fellow was telling me the right things. Now I'm understanding. Back then, I was probably understanding, but I didn't want to listen to him. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
The same thing is way. It's this. Generational gap bridging involves a lot of patience and listening, which we're lacking today, I'm thinking. So that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I mean that's true not just in the workplace with your colleagues, but with your clients.
It's your clients, especially.
Yeah.
Ooh, especially.
I mean, I'm not trying to date us, but it's like when we were growing up, we didn't have this technology at our fingertips. It's like I remember our first computer, I was almost a teenager basically when we got it in our house. So it's like even like your phone and the amount of things that your phone can do.
Oh, yeah.
This younger generation that Nino is mentioning, like they've always had access to that. They've constantly had an
I was
iPhone in their pocket.
drawing by hand till like third grade or something like that.
I mean, I didn't even get a cell phone till my freshman year of college.
I was the only one without cell phone at Kansas State Studio.
So I think the amount of access that they've had growing up, right,
Oh, yeah.
gives them this different perspective. And for them, it's just a different way to look at things, a different way to digest things and take information in and spit information
But it's
out.
also double-edged sword because the fact they're thinking they saw they saw the title, they know the content. And today's mastermind of information communication or deceiving information put the title to be understood different ways. You know what I'm saying? Look at today's media and communication.
Well, you can even ask AI to read this article and then give me a paragraph synopsis
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I
Give me the
understand it.
summary.
Exactly.
And which is almost more beneficial. I mean,
Than just reading the title. You
from
know
a
what I'm
from a
saying?
time perspective, if you want to have a
So
good conversation.
then coming from and working currently in educational world, do you see, and you already mentioned some benefits and drawbacks of this artificial intelligence, how are you seeing this younger generation that this world is going to pawn on, how they actually tuning into this new world of this modern technology? They're aware what they're having. How are they getting, like, do you guys at the Kent have any like courses about artificial intelligence, benefits, drawbacks, what it can do, what is projected to do in the future?
What it's probably going to mean, Nino, is that a lot of people in education are going to need to rethink the way they approach assignments. Students are going to use it,
Oh, yeah.
but if they understand how it works, what it's really doing, where it excels and where it doesn't, say you want students to read The Grapes of Wrath and write a report. Maybe part of that assignment is having a conversation with ChatGPT about that era in history and symbolism and submit that conversation. Like, show me you've engaged with the topic. I don't know, but I think we need to be really creative because for better or for worse, it's here.
It is here, yep.
This really got me thinking, actually, because I'll use AI for helping with email communications and some conceptual design. But what if we can empower our potential clients to start that conceptual design process? I mean, there's enough information out there now where, and they're watching HGTV or just Googling stuff online with their Pinterest boards or whatever, and they know, I want this type of tile, I love this look, I love these pendants, I love these chandeliers, I like this style. Now, how can I pull this all together and kind of use AI to generate the space, like with the space that I have, and bring all these elements together? So is there a way to put some type of mood board together that our potential clients can do on their own and then submit that to us to help make that initial, so we understand them even better and we can deliver a product that is not only vetted by us but also is in line with their thoughts, their visions, and their expectations?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. Essentially, it's like, it depends on what your input is, right? So it's like, again, you just refine your input. So maybe it's like, oh, I want more of a warmer palette. So it's like you have some initial image that's created by AI, and then it's like you refine it by making it warmer
Because
or whatever.
as you can guys remember, especially when they have like a more costume based, like a customers, they want to build something from the ground up. They will actually send us or email us some inspirational photos. If you remember when we were working on that property in Hocking Hills, they're actually being inspired by one of these properties they visited.
Not too far away.
Not too far away, exactly. So yeah, I see that. And I agree with Danny. Definitely like turning back to something that is coming. It's I don't think it's a good approach. But the way let me read, let me compare, go old fashioned, because now we are in transitional phase, and the better we learn about it, better we even gonna help that artificial intelligence help us do another task. If you just turn it back, it's gonna develop anyway. but it's not going to be the tool that's going to help us. It's more going to be because it's developed by someone who doesn't really fully understand your role. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And always is good to be on top of the wave.
Absolutely. I mean,
Well, and that's why it's like, you don't see the process in the factory of how things are made.
Yeah.
Right? So you don't really truly understand what you're getting. That's why
Yeah.
prompts are so important. So some advice to give to somebody who might try to utilize this to give us inspiration if they're trying to use one of these image generators or whatever, something to come up with a description of what they're looking for based on their area, the location of their property, etc. Be careful with your prompts and prompt them again and again and again. You might have to do it 4 or 5 times until you get something that's
finely tune
right,
it.
that's kind of what you want or what's in line with what you're thinking. Right? It's not just gonna, like we talked about in the beginning, it doesn't just spit out your answer and you're done.
So Danny, now in the Kent State, how I can learn more about if I'm like a student now or we're gonna be a student again, as we talked previous, like we have to be students all our lives, for entire duration of our lives. Like now I'm talking about back to education, how I can learn more about AI and what it can do, like if I now want to enroll some classes, and what is there anything like a specifically orientated towards that field or?
At Kent State, they just did a lunch and learn series where computer science professors did a whole series of Zoom chats just talking about how AI works, how it's structured, what's going to happen. And then the Kent State Communications School, Emerging Technology, they're constantly thinking through and doing work on from the non-technical, maybe a less technical side, but more what are the implications for society. And to what Nick and Polly what you guys have been talking about with having people enter design ideas, I think that I think if I were talking to someone that were going to use this for design ideas, they should know 2 things up front. One, it's going to skew positive. So if you tell it, hey, I have this idea and this is what I want to do, and I want to put a giant foam camel in my living room, ChatGPT is going to come back and say, that's a great idea.
Danny.
So
you go.
Danny, you're not allowed to design for us.
That's so inventive. Right, but you should be aware of that because it's responding to your prompt. So if you come in really, really full of you're excited about your theme and my Star Trek themed Airbnb, it's going to tell you what a great idea that is and how you can do it, and but it's gonna build on your prompt, and so that just knowing that up front, that this is a tool for maybe you to expand your own ideas and not to go like, is this the it's going to tell you pretty much anything you do is the best idea in the world. That's how it's built.
Very nice to put.
Yeah. What's the second thing, Danny? You said there was 2 things. So one, it skews positive.
It's going to skew positive, and it's going to reaffirm. Yeah, skew positive and reaffirm.
So essentially, you still need to work with your design professional.
To put you back to the reality.
And not only that, just construction documents in general with code changes and zoning, like that's something that's still kind of out of reach.
Conversation with the people on the field we build, but on the same time, it gives you it gives you a little bit of the client's perspective. Maybe he wants to have a.
So that's what interests me.
A
is
room
like
that's green and only green.
Yeah, exactly.
but if I can understand our clients better,
Yeah.
yes. If someone says they want a giant foam camel, then we might not be able to work with them.
Just big spans.
That was
you just need to
top of my
space
head.
with the big spans, man.
Yeah.
No, but I'm really interested on understanding our clients better, and I think that we spend a lot of time on the design, consultation, reviewing the space, kind of understanding what their goals of the property is, and what direction they want to go in.
I love that point. I just want to, sorry to interrupt, but again, experiencing the space, right?
Yep.
You put something into a computer, the computer doesn't go on site, walk the site, feel what the space is, feel what the ceiling height is, look at the natural light coming into the space. So again, it's like, even what you're inputting, is very limited to these tools because they can't go out in the field and do these things.
Yeah.
It's a computer somewhere that you're just prompting it and it's giving you the reply. And like Danny said, it's a positive reply and it's a reaffirming reply.
And when we're talking about giant camel, I just remember I was last summer I was in Punta Cana. We went to this fancy restaurant. It was like a giant giraffe holding the chandelier in her mouth. So I was like okay. So I was like, all space was like a dark black, and there is like in the middle, there is a giant giraffe holding the chandelier. I'll send you pictures.
Send me a picture. If it's a short-term rental or a hotel, I mean, it might make sense.
It was a restaurant.
There
It was
you
a
go.
restaurant.
There
It
you
was
go.
like a high-end restaurant.
That's their wow factor.
Yeah. But Danny's right. We didn't know how this thing's gonna look like in 5 years, or even in a year. It can be more breakthroughs.
Well, they've already monetized it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
And I'm seeing a lot of education courses now on how to leverage it.
Mm-hmm. Just, and we have to be aware. We have to educate ourselves on that, honestly. I think we as designers, we have to be on top of, because this is the new wave coming. We have to be aware of it, and we have to have much deeper understanding of the technology and what is coming. And as Danny said, we still don't know what's going to roll, but we still have to be more prepared than less prepared, I will say.
Paul, I'm going to put you on the spot. What is our next steps, and what can we do to be knowledgeable about this wave that we're in right now, and how can we implement those attributes?
I mean, it just goes back to Nino's point, right? We just don't ignore it. You try to leverage and utilize it and understand it. But, again, just popping back in my head, even 5 years from now, like you said, Danny said, we don't know what that future is going to be or how good it could be. Maybe it can spit out a set of drawings that's good enough to get a permit. But, I mean, again, in my mind, I still think there's going to be difficulties for it to get to that point because it can't go on site and experience what that space is. Mm-hmm. To take that out of the equation when you're trying to design and tell this story of a beautiful space, without having to go and experience it, how are you going to, what are you going to take a ton of photos and scan it? And
that's a motion portion of it that we can help in it. And as Danny said, it's going to be as accurate as data that it receives in. So if data that thing is not receiving is not accurate, then it's going to be God knows what.
Yeah, I think for the architecture industry, you have to create these digital twins of the space and input a mountain of data of what that space is into the computer to get something useful out of it.
Which is basically what we do anyways when we do a 3D digital model.
But also there's do you know what I also saw a shift? I know we're and both me and Paul and Unique, when we're doing all this from one level of the renderings to the next level, be super high, realistic renderings. And now we see the shift to going be less realistic because there was drawbacks because client was perceiving no, I don't really like that shade of that material.
Yeah.
If you can do this, and our side was now we have to produce this very high quality renderings because this client is perceiving is going to receive exactly like that.
Why is this tile rectilinear, versus octagonal? I need it to be octagonal.
And you build this space, and he's gonna put your rendering against that space. It was it doesn't really look.
The light is different. The color is different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mood is not the same.
That's a great point.
And then we were okay, let's go. Tone this down. Let's try to just send send the messages of general feeling of the space, the general feeling of the design, because you can easily rabbit hole. You can then put back to the right there on the site and being scrutinized. They're not delivering what you already promised. You know what I'm saying? So, every technology has a double-edged sword, but we still gonna use it. I think it's gonna be something that's gonna change the world, of course. Internal combustion engine changed the world, as the internet changed the world, and these things may have even bigger potential that make really big statement.
I want to say too, architecture, fields of design, these fields have always been about pushing the limits, innovation, change. One thing, and this is what I would also tell young people, is that AI doesn't innovate. It builds off of what already exists and reassembles and rehashes. And so it still takes human thought and human ingenuity to create something new and to contribute to the field. And that's where you need professionals and designers that aren't just plugging in prompts and using what the output is verbatim. So again, like, I think you're right. It can be part of maybe some of that process, part of the automation of things, but it'll never, I don't think, really ever be a replacement for the creativity of human beings.
Oh yeah, and it was like when you see it today, we still have like especially we see, and that's like I keep like talking to our in architectural profession, how easily we gave up on the residential world and just let it like have cookie cutters being placed all around with just different versions of the colors. We already have that. I mean, we already have people like, okay, I'm fine with it. That's how much my budget can afford. Not everybody can afford the architect.
Well, I mean, that's a good point. If you're a developer or a builder and you're developing this neighborhood and you have 5 or 6 different designs that have subtle differences so that, you can customize it so it all doesn't look the same. I bet AI would then say, here's all this information. Now, how can we really make this neighborhood feel more unique? That's why I love living downtown in bigger cities, because everything is different.
But that's, people has to go through the trial and errors to create something. You know what I'm saying? First, you're gonna say like, I want a big house, just enough for the kids, and I live in suburbia. There's no creek in the backyard, anymore. I have tons of neighbors, but house is big and serves the purpose, and people eventually will go say like, after listening the same tune over and over again, it was like, okay, let's listen to something else. So, and that's what I'm telling the people, like, don't be scared of these technologies. Will just help us open the new creativity levels. It's just, if you it's scary. It's scary for me too. And it was like, he's gonna just produce the documents and I'm gonna be useful. I'm gonna be useful if I know what that thing is gonna deliver, and I'm top of that game, and now it helped me to unlock another level in my brain that I never even challenged before.
I got to tell you, I'm excited about all this.
Yeah,
I mean,
honestly,
when I grew up, I had a rotary phone.
Yeah.
And, in 40 plus years, this world's different. It's completely different. So I want to see what it's like in 40 more years.
Yeah, and then he's right. He's like, there is something in our as a human being that was like, we should not ever try to like look for a alternative, because we are as we are created, we can be the most destructive force on this planet, but the most creative one too. So I still have a huge faith in humanity, especially in the profession that we are doing. But we just have to every day be student, learn, and deliver more. Always ask ourselves, I know when I design something, it's phenomenal in the evening. I woke up in the morning, it looks like crap. So, honestly, you have to be like, otherwise you're never going to push yourself. And just enjoy it. Have fun.
I like that.
All right, so I think we'll wrap up there with what Nino just said. But if you guys are out there listening to us, be sure to like and follow us, and we'll see you on the next one.
Take care.
This has been the ArcFluence Podcast. Please subscribe on the platform of your choice and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. As always, you can get more information and additional content on arcfluence.com. I'm Paul Fatkins.
I'm Nick Karakan, and we'll see you next time.